Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Nick Cosgrove and I'm back with this week's No Filter Q&A. This is the episode where I answer all questions related to diet, training, and supplementation that I received over the past 7 days from our in-house clients, online clients, as well as a few of our online followers. Remember, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you are currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at fitcosgrove_. All right, let's get started with this week's no filter Q&A with question number one. Nick, I've been lifting consistently for almost 2 years, but when I take my shirt off, I still don't look like I train. What's the biggest mistake people make that keep them looking average despite working hard? So, working harder doesn't necessarily equate to better results when it comes to building a better physique. All right. You can put all the hard work, all the time, all the effort into the training, but if you're missing one piece of that puzzle, everything could fall apart. Now, I don't work with you, so I don't know what that piece might be. But if you're training hard in the gym, which it sounds like you're doing, what does your nutritional plan look like? Right. A lot of times when people come to work with me, they've been training for years, and hell, they're even following a bodybuilding split. They're doing a 5 day training split, taking 2 days of rest. But it's not that they're not training correctly; they're not eating correctly. So if your nutrition plan doesn't complement your training program, you're missing a big piece of the puzzle. If your supplement protocol doesn't complement your training program, you're missing another big piece of the puzzle. And by supplement protocol, I don't mean PEDs. I'm not talking about performance enhancement drugs. I'm talking making sure you're getting enough vitamins, your minerals, so your omega 3s, your vitamin C, your vitamin D, vitamin B, whatever you yourself might have a deficiency in, which you would know from blood work, you should be supplementing with accordingly. All right. You also want to make sure you're getting enough rest and recovery. That's important. So if you're someone who trains 5, 6 days a week in the gym, but you're only sleeping for 4 hours a night, well, you're not going to recover. If you don't recover, you're not going to grow. All right. So there's many pieces to the puzzle as opposed to just training hard. And we've talked about in the past how I'm a firm believer that training and nutrition are 50-50. And you got to throw the supplement protocol in there as well. But 50-50. One doesn't outweigh the other. And you can't have one without the other. Because there's so many people I know that go to the gym, they train really hard, but then they'll go have McDonald's, they'll order from Uber Eats, and they're not dialing in their nutritional plan. And I talked about in the past how when I first started training, for the first 2, 3 years I was training as a teenager, I didn't know anything about dietary nutrition. There were no message boards, I didn't have access to the internet. So I was just kind of following my own makeshift nutrition plan, which was basically this cereal and like pasta and fries and burgers and pizza. So I was building muscle, but it wasn't quality muscle because I had a layer of fat covering it, right? Because I wasn't training, I wasn't eating correctly. I was training good. I learned how to train. I just didn't know how to eat. All right. So once you dial in your diet and you complement that with the training, now you're going to really start to see more defined muscle, bigger muscle, right? More predominant muscles. So it's essential that you get your diet dialed in. I tell this to every client I work with. And this is why when I work with people in house, I'm always in their business. I'm like, what do you have for breakfast? What are you going to have for your post-workout? What do you eat this weekend? I really get in their business and not to shame them, but to remind them that if they're not fueling their bodies correctly for these workouts, I don't want to say that you're wasting your time because it's good that you're still going to the gym. It's good that you're still exercising. So you're not wasting your time, but you're going to accelerate your results if you dial in your nutritional plan. All right. So 9 times out of 10 in this situation where someone is training really hard in the gym and they're checking all their boxes when it comes to their workouts, it's usually something wrong with their nutritional plan. In that case, my recommendation to you, work with an online coach, work with a dietitian, work with a nutritionist that can help dial in your diet specifically for you. Because you can't just go and follow a copy paste diet plan that a professional bodybuilder follows. Okay. Because the professional bodybuilder might have faster metabolism, might be on human growth hormone, right? Might be on a whole bunch of PEDs that accelerates their metabolism. So you can't eat like a Ronnie Coleman and expect to have a six pack. That's a genetic freak. All right. This is why it's important you work with someone who can customize a program specifically for you, your lifestyle, and your goals. All right. Next question. Nick, if you could only give someone 3 pieces of advice to completely transform their physique over the next 5 years, what would they be? Train consistently, eat cleanly, and rest and recover accordingly. All right. Without those three, or even without one of those three, you're not going to maximize your results. It's crucial that when it comes to training, it's not necessarily training harder, it's training more consistently. And I've talked about this on my YouTube shorts about stop chasing perfection, stop trying to focus on getting the perfect workout, the perfect time, the perfect day. No, 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 no. Just train consistently. Every day, if you're building a house, use the analogy if you're building a brick house, every day you go to the workout, you're putting a brick onto that house. All right. That was an analogy that Dorian Yates used, six-time Mr. Olympia. And when he said that, that really resonated with me because I'm like, yeah, he's right. Every time I go to the gym, I'm adding a brick to my house. I'm building my physique. But now I also need the cement. That's my nutrition plan because you can't just put bricks on top of each other and expect to have a house. It's going to fall down, right? You need the cement too. So same thing. So you need to have the nutrition dialed in. So the training program's there. Then the nutrition plan's in there. And then you're making sure that you're resting and you're recovering properly. And that's a big one too, because I feel like a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this myself, don't get enough rest, don't recover properly. And if you don't recover properly, you're not going to grow. All right. You're not going to lose body fat as quickly. All right. If your cortisol levels are elevated because your body's in a constant state of stress, guess what? It's going to be very hard to lose fat. It's going to be very hard to build muscle. Okay. Your body goes into like survival mode. It doesn't care about it.
Okay, I found this on the web for very hard to lose fat muscle.
So
Check it out.
Siri's talking to me now. Um, so wow, Siri found something online too. So about losing fat. Thank you, Siri. But it's very important that you make sure that all three are stacked. So you're training on a consistent basis. That means you're not missing 2 or 3 weeks in the gym. You're training consistently. Okay. Yeah, if you go on vacation for a week, no problem. But it's not something that you're doing every few months. You miss a week once a year, right? To me, that's fine. But you should be training the gym on average for most people 3 to 5 times per week. That's my personal opinion. Okay. Weight training, I'm talking about. When it comes to cardiovascular activity, you could throw in 20, 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be in the gym. It could be outside walking. All right. But again, consistency, not just for low body fat levels, but overall for heart health. And of course, when it comes to your diet, your nutrition, I'm not saying you have to eat clean 95 to 100% of the time. God, if you can just keep 80% of your nutritional plan clean for the week, that's great. All right. And that's why I always tell clients. I'm like, if you can give me a B on your nutrition plan and not an F, not a D, you're going to see progress. You're going to feel changes. You're going to feel better. You're going to sleep better. You're going to recover better if your nutrition's dialed in. All right. So you want to stack all three. So train consistently, eat cleanly to the best of your ability. It doesn't have to be 100% clean. It can be 80, 85% clean most of the time. That's great. And make sure you are getting enough rest and recovery. And I'm not going to throw an exact, you have to get 8 hours of sleep because everyone's different. But my own personal opinion, I believe we all need a minimum of 6 hours of sleep per night. Okay. I really do believe that. Some people operate like me. I can operate on 6 hours of sleep and I feel good. Anything less though, I feel like crap. If I sleep too much, if I do sleep for 7, 8 hours, I haven't done that in years, but if I do that, I actually feel like crap too. So for me, my sweet spot is 6 hours. For you, it might be 8 hours. It might be 9 hours. Okay. You got to find what works for you and you got to make sure you schedule it in so you do recover properly. All right. Okay. Next question. Nick, everyone says you need to eat more to build muscle, but how do you know the difference between eating enough to grow and just getting fat? Yeah, so I had a similar question about this last week on the Q&A, and someone was asking me, how do I know if I'm getting fat? I said, well, it's pretty easy. I mean, if you're getting fat, it's going to jiggle, okay? Water doesn't jiggle. So if you're holding water weight, because I have a lot of people say, oh, I think I'm holding water. I'm like, I hate to break it to you, you're holding fat. It's jiggling, all right? So water weight is very obvious. When you're holding water weight, the skin's actually a little bit tighter, okay, when you're holding water weight. So you feel like bloated, all right? So that's water weight. Now, as far as eating too much, it's not necessarily eating more to grow. You want to make sure you're eating the right foods. So you're not eating junk food. You're not eating fast food. You're eating the correct foods. And here's the thing, when you eat healthy, when you eat clean foods, you have to eat so much volume. And it's almost impossible, in my opinion, if you're eating healthy food and you're training on a consistent basis to get fat. I mean, right now, God, my carbs are easily at 600 grams of carbs a day. Easily 600 grams per day of carbs. Most people would get fat off that. But because I train every day or almost every day, and because I'm on my feet for most of the day, I'm constantly burning calories. So I'm not worried about getting fat. Now, if I started to notice when I have my shirt off, I'm like, oh, you know what? I am getting a little bit soft. It's not water. I can see I have some jiggle, or maybe, I can't see my abs anymore. I'll just start scaling back on the food. All right. So I really, really pay close attention to my body. And I also listen to how my body feels because there's something to be said about having too much carbohydrates. If you have too much carbohydrates, even if they're the complex carbohydrates, you're going to feel very lethargic, very tired. All right. So that's why I advise people to, make sure that whatever you're doing, if you're on a so-called bulk where you're trying to gain weight, You're doing it very slowly. You're bumping up your carbs, you're bumping up your fats, you're bumping up your proteins very slowly, and you're monitoring your physique on a regular basis. It doesn't have to be on a daily basis, but it could be on a weekly basis where you're taking those weekly progress photos that I advise everyone to do. All right. Just for yourself. You don't have to put them on Instagram. You just have them for reference so that you are comparing on a weekly basis. Hey, how did I look last week compared to this week? Hey, how did I look last month compared to this month? And that will help you make those changes because many times when I'm working with people online, and this is why I advise my clients to please send me progress photos because I'm looking at the body. I want to see body composition change. So if someone's telling me, hey, Nick, I haven't lost any weight in 3 weeks, but I'm looking at their photos and I'm comparing week one to week three. I'm like, yeah, but in your photos, it looks like you're putting on muscle and you're losing fat. So your body composition is changing. So I don't give, sorry for my language, but I don't give two shits about the weight on the scale. Your body composition is changing in a positive direction. So let's go with that. Let's not worry about the scale right now. I know people love to see numbers. They love to use the scale as a metric, but the scale is just one of many metrics to use when you're trying to chase progress. All right. So remember that. All right. So that's my recommendation. You know, it, again, if you're not sure, because I think a lot of people, especially people who maybe once were overweight and now they've lost all the weight, but they're trying to put on muscle. So they're really afraid about getting back to getting, putting on body fat again. I understand that because I work with a lot of people like that. I say, look, as long as the food is clean, you're going to have to eat a lot of it to get fat. I can promise you that because I eat clean foods and like, I'm like stuffed because it's so much volume. It's much easier to get 1,000 calories from going to McDonald's than it is through chicken and rice. Trust me. You have to consume a lot of rice, a lot of chicken to crack 1,000 calories. So it's very difficult to do it. And again, a lot of people talk about calories in, calories out. I don't disagree with that, but I think if you're eating what I call good calories, as in high quality micronutrients, the quality of the foods you're consuming, it's going to be very difficult to get fat if you are training on a consistent basis. Okay. Okay, Nick, I've noticed that some of the biggest guys in the gym don't actually train that hard, while some of the hardest workers never seem to change. Why does that happen? I don't think we can group all big guys in the gym as not training hard. Because listen, I train with a lot of guys who are big. A lot of my training partners over the years are big guys, and they train hard and they diet smart. All right. And then there are guys in the gym who probably train harder, who are smaller and don't even look like they work out. But a lot of that can be factored into genetics. There are some genetic freaks out there. Flex Wheeler comes to mind, uncrowned Mr. Olympia, great genetics, never won Mr. Olympia. And, he said himself, he's like, I just didn't push myself hard enough in the gym. If he had pushed himself a little bit harder, he probably would have been 8, 9 time Mr. Olympia. He had the genetics. And there's a lot of bodybuilders out there who had the genetics to be a Mr. Olympia, but didn't have that work ethic. All right. So they could kind of get away with, relying on their genetics to get them in that second or third place, but they never could just surpass that. And the guy with the, good genetics, but maybe not as good genetics, like a Ronnie Coleman, beating them. All right. Because they had that work ethic. So I've always said, when you combine genetics, with work ethic and talent, that's an unbeatable combination. But the guy with the average genetics with a good work ethic or a great work ethic, in my opinion, can always outperform the guy with great genetics with a shitty work ethic. Okay. So I don't think it's fair to group all big guys and say they don't train hard enough. Yeah, there's a few big guys out there who do rely on their genetics, do rely on PEDs. And for a lot of those guys, I mean, they don't have like full-time jobs. Maybe when I used to train at this one gym, I remember there were a lot of bodybuilders who'd be like 3 or 4 hours in the gym. They were massive. And none of them were really doing like, they didn't have careers. They were like bouncing at nightclubs. And I'm not saying that's a bad job, but they weren't really pushing themselves anywhere else in life. This was their life. Winning a bodybuilding show, their physique was their life. So they weren't really trying to do better anywhere else in life. They didn't have any ambition. All right. So a lot of guys just they go to the gym and they have a lot of rest and recovery and they can kind of enjoy the lifestyle of a bodybuilder. All right. So I wouldn't say that all big guys don't train hard. All right. Now, when you talk about guys who are training hard in the gym and they look average, again, this goes back to that first question. Just because someone is training hard does not necessarily mean that they're going to get great results. If you're going to the gym and you're bench pressing max 3, 4 times a week, I'd be very surprised if you had a decent chest because you're overtraining the chest. Same thing with squats. I know people that go to the gym, women especially, who squat 3 or 4 times a week. Like, if you're squatting correctly, there's no way that you're going to be able to do that because your legs are going to be too sore. I know for me, after a leg workout, there's no way I can squat 2 days later. There's no way. Even when I demonstrate a squat for a new client, I'm like, oh my God. I even tell them, like, just so you know, I trained legs earlier this week. My squat's going to be a little shaky. Okay, it is. And I'm always very transparent with my clients. I tell them that I'm like, I just trained legs this morning or yesterday. My clients understand. They're like, yeah, they get it. So when you train correctly, it's going to be very hard to train that muscle over and over again. Okay. So don't necessarily think that training harder is going to equate to better results. Again, like I said in that first or second question, it's the consistency factor. Make sure you're going to the gym. Do not train to failure. Train at about 75, 80% intensity. And that to me is great. I've gotten great results. I've had great results with clients just keeping that intensity at about 75, 80% consistently, and people get results. That's it. Okay. There's no reason to go from 0 to 100 and screaming and yelling and balls to wall where your eyes are getting bloodshot and all this crap. You don't need to do all that. All right. You don't. Okay, so that's all that bro science, no pain, no gain, all that bullshit. A lot of those guys who follow that bro science, now they can't even train because they've been in so much pain. Now they have injuries. All right. So train intelligently, approach your workouts methodically. That's how you're going to grow. All right. And don't worry about what other people are doing in the gym because you don't know other people's stories. You don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. They could be a genetic freak. They could be on a huge amount of PEDs. You have no idea. Or maybe they do train. Maybe you're just catching them on a day where they're having like a deload workout. Okay, so don't judge someone else by the way that they're training and their physique. Just stay in your own lane, focus on what you're doing, and don't worry about what other people are doing. All right. Okay, Nick, if someone hired you today and gave you 1 year to build the best physique possible, what would be the biggest thing you'd make them stop doing immediately? So I'd have to look at, first of all, their training program. I'd have to look at their nutritional plan. 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a beginner or even someone who's an intermediate or advanced lifter, I see red flags. There's always red flags. God, I could probably give someone a coach my program and they'd see red flags. And sometimes those red flags are the training program. Maybe they're overtraining, maybe they're undertraining, maybe the sequence of their programs don't make sense. Maybe they're neglecting certain muscle groups, so they're creating muscular imbalances. So I'd correct that right away. I'd want to make sure whatever program they're following is going to create a perfect symmetrical physique. So even if they have tell me, hey Nick, I've got great biceps. I don't really need to train my arms. So I'm like, I disagree with you. We might not have to train your arms as much, but we still have to train your arms. Okay, because we don't want to create further muscular imbalances. And I'm not just talking about the aesthetics, I'm talking about the strength overall. So I want to make sure all the muscle bellies are trained correctly in the proper sequence, in the proper order. I'll put that program together based on the person's training program themselves, what they feel that how many times a week they can go to the gym, how much time they can spend in the gym, their training level, are they beginner, intermediate, advanced. So, I have to factor all these in when putting together a training program. But the most important thing is that I help them create a symmetrical physique that is strong and healthy. Then I'll look at their diet plan. No, I've seen a lot of diets over the years that just, I've seen some clients actually diet plans that don't look too bad. And others, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But for a lot of my clients who come to work with me on a nutrition plan, they're like, I don't know, I'm just holding fat. And I look at their diet, I'm like, your diet's actually not that bad. But it could be something like you have just a little bit too much sugar. And even though it's natural sugar, let's say it's coming from fruit, this is why you're having a hard time losing that body fat. So what I'll start to do with people like that is I'll incorporate more natural fats. I've talked about this before, avocado, peanut butter, eggs, anything that's going to help regulate their blood sugar levels so that they're not craving more sugar. Okay. And help keep their insulin levels stable throughout the day as well. That's important. So that's just an idea. So I'll look at someone's diet plan. I'll find the red flag if it's too much sugar, too much carbs, whatever. Maybe they're under eating, and I'll tweak that a little bit. Again, if it's the first time I'm working with someone, though, I always tell my clients, hey, look, this is trial and error. You have to give me time because it's the first time I'm learning your body. I'm learning how you're going to adjust to the plan. And I make mistakes. I always tell people, like, I'm not perfect. I'm not ChatGPT, so I'm going to make mistakes, but I won't make the same mistake twice. So if I'm doing something and you come back to me and say, oh, I'm having really bad chronic diarrhea or constipation, I'm like, okay, we're going to learn from this mistake and we're going to tweak your diet this way, in this direction. All right. So that's why I say it's so important to get a customized program specifically for you. Okay. Because you can follow the same template as your friend to start a plan, but that plan is going to go in a very different direction for two different people. I can tell you that right now. It will. All right. So understanding that is very important. So I look at the person's nutrition plan as well. And then I would look at their supplement protocol. Again, I'm not talking about PEDs. Now, if I'm working with someone who is on PEDs, I do have clients who use PEDs, that's fine. But I want to make sure that they're getting their blood work done on a regular basis. That's important. I will not work with someone who's on PEDs unless they're getting their blood work done twice a year. Because I will not make any recommendations to them unless I can see their blood work. They send me their Life Labs report here in Canada. I can read their Life Labs report and say, okay, everything looks good. Your creatinine levels look good. Your hemoglobin levels look good. Good. Your red cell blood count, white cell blood count, whatever I'm looking at, testosterone levels, everything looks good. All right, I'm going to recommend this. If your blood work looks bad, I'm not going to recommend anything. I'm going to say, no, no, back off everything. So that's important too. And if I'm just talking about basic supplement protocol, vitamins, minerals, I still ask for blood work once a year so I can see what you're deficient in. The amount of people I've worked with over the years that have vitamin D deficiencies, it's incredible. And these are the same people that say, well, I take vitamin D in the winter. It's you have to take it year round, period. You have to take it year round. You cannot just take vitamin D in the winter and say, well, I get enough sun in the summer. It doesn't work like that. Okay. You're taking it in IU format, okay, or in drops, whatever you want, but at the same time, it absorbs better into the body as opposed to the sun, which is inconsistent. Like today here in Vancouver, it's cloudy outside. So if I go outside, yeah, I'm gonna get maybe some indirect sun, but it's not the same. All right. It's a really sunny day where I'll get a lot of vitamin D. So that's a common mistake a lot of people make with certain supplements. Say, I don't need those. I'm like, you don't know what you need until you get your blood work done and you see what you're deficient in. And that, when I put together a supplement protocol for someone, I have a great idea as, okay, this person needs this, this, this. I have a lot of clients that don't want to get their blood work done. I'm like, all right, fine. Like I'm talking about the ones who are not on PEDs. So I'm like, all right, that's not big, but I'm going to give you what I feel everyone should have: vitamin C, vitamin D, omega 3s, vitamin B, zinc. And that's across the board for everybody. But I like to see blood work even for my natural lifters. So that way I can program accordingly. But otherwise, I'll give them a very generic protocol to follow. And then we'll tweak it along the way based on how they're feeling. All right. So that's what I do with most people. And I need to see this work because the more information they give me, the better I can customize the program for them. All right. Uh, okay. Nick, if social media disappeared tomorrow and nobody could post their workouts or physiques online, what do you think would change about the fitness industry? Hmm. Well, I would just have to go back to when I first started training people because nobody was posting their workouts online. I mean, YouTube didn't exist, Facebook didn't exist, so there was no social media. Um, I would say that there was a lot of back then more mystique behind the gym, more mystique as to how do I build this physique. Now, these days, God, you go on any social network channel, they're talking about PEDs, they're talking about peptides, people are putting out their steroid cycles, and that's fine. But the problem is that when I see a lot of this information, a lot of it, in my opinion, is misinformation, and it's copy and paste information that becomes diluted. I'm not just talking about the drugs. I'm talking about the diet. I'm talking about the training. So there's a lot of good information out there, and there's a lot of bad information out there. And I feel that it's very hard to navigate between the good and bad if you yourself are someone that's brand new. So, what I always recommend to anyone is find a trusted, reputable, and knowledgeable source and stick with that person for as long as you can if you're feeling like, hey, I'm progressing. Because there's like people who go from coach to coach to coach. This happens in the professional industry. It's happened in even the fitness industry where you have people that jump from coach to coach. They want to try different things. I'm not against that. But at the same time, it's like I've always been someone who's very loyal to the people I work with. So, for example, I've had the same handyman for 10 plus years. I'm very loyal to my handyman because he's very good at what he does. My dentist, same thing. I'm very loyal to my dentist because he's very good at what he does. If they weren't good at what they were doing and I wasn't happy with the results I was getting, I'd go somewhere else. But I don't want to just go somewhere else because I'm getting a different direction or hearing something from a different source. Oh, try this or try this. This is better. This is going to help you get better results. No, because if I'm progressing, even if it's on a gradual basis, I'm happy with that in anything in life. My financial advisor, same thing. I'm very loyal to her. But the same thing is like you want to make sure that whoever you're working with or whoever you're following online, you yourself can trust and you yourself know, okay, this person has my utmost it's of utmost importance for this person that my health comes first. And I always tell clients this. I'm like, I want to help you transform your physique. I want to help you lose fat. I want to help you build muscle. But the most important thing for me is that we do this in the healthiest way possible. Okay. So I don't want you, if you're a woman, missing your period for 6 months because your calories are too low. I don't want you, if you're a guy, your testosterone's in the basement, you have no libido at all because we're not going to talk about HRT or TRT therapy. Okay, because I'm not knowledgeable on that. So I want to make sure that I'm a reference for my clients so they feel they can talk to me about this and they can get a good answer. If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell them I don't know the answer. Okay. But the problem I feel, and I've talked about this before with social media, is that there is a lot of bad information out there. And you get these progress photos now, and there's filtered progress photos, filtered selfies. That to me also sends the wrong message because there's a lot of people that, they'll see themselves and say, why am I not progressing like this person? I'm like, again, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And a lot of people, especially the social media influencers, they don't tell people. They're not honest about what they do. They're not honest if they're on, a massive steroid cycle. They're not honest if they're using peptides. They're not even honest if they're using TRT therapy if they're a guy, right? So I think it's very important that if you are going to be someone who's a so-called influencer in this industry, that you yourself are very transparent. And I've told my clients this time and time again. Like, I'm like, you got a question, I'll be honest with you. I'll talk to you about PEDs. I've told you I've tried fat burners. I've told clients this when I competed. I've told them what I've tried. And the reason I tell them that, I was like, look, this physique is not sustainable. When you see those contest photos of me, which like nothing compared to like the Olympia stage, but pretty decent for me, I don't stay like that year round. I don't walk around at 3% body fat year round. So you have to remember that it's not a realistic goal. All right. But a realistic goal, let's say if you're a guy, would be like, hey, what? I'm at, 20% body fat. I want to be at around 12% body fat. That is a realistic and a healthy goal. All right. So I think if social media didn't exist, I'm not going to say that things would be much better because there are always going to be con artists out there. There were coaches when social media didn't exist that I would go up against that were giving misinformation out. So there's always going to be those few that, are just trying to take your money and like sleazy salesmen. But I don't think that social media is necessarily a bad thing. I just think it's important for you, the consumer, to make sure that you do your research on the person who you are following. All right. And for me, for example, I've got tons of testimonials. I've got tons of Google reviews. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. Am I the best? Absolutely not. But I do feel like I'm a good source of reference when people are talking or asking me questions about fat loss, muscle building, supplement protocols, because I've been there and I've done that myself. And I've done it with hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of people over the years. All right. So that experience does help. Okay. So that's my recommendation when it comes to following social media influencers. I don't think social media is a bad thing. For a lot of people who can't afford to work with a trainer, I know when I first started working out, I mean, it would have been great to have some YouTube videos that I could have followed and like, okay, this is how you do a bench press. Oh, this is how you do a seated row. I was very lucky, though. I talked about in the past how I had some bodybuilders that at my local gym that actually took me under the wing and taught me how to do these exercises. But without them and without my Arnold Schwarzenegger encyclopedia book that I used to go back and forth and read, it would have been very difficult for me to learn how to live correctly. So now a lot of people have access to YouTube videos, TikTok videos, and there are some good videos out there. Okay. But like anything in life, you should do your research because if you're not doing your research on the person you're following, you only have yourself to blame if something goes wrong. If you get injured or if you're following a supplement stack or a PD stack that creates adverse side effects, you only have yourself to blame, not the coach, because you decided to follow that person. All right. Okay. Last question. Nick, after coaching people for over 25 years, what's one lesson you've learned that completely changed the way you train clients today compared to when you first started? When I was a new trainer, I felt that I had to prove myself to everyone. I really did. So, the first time I'd get a client, I'd always be really nervous. I'm like, I gotta, this is my time to shine. I gotta show them why I'm the best, why I'm gonna help them build muscle, lose fat. And so I would go overboard with my sessions. I would give them too much information in one session. It's like, just like information overload on exercise. I'm like, oh, you gotta do this exercise, this exercise. I would do everything. And I would constantly think that I had to switch up the workouts just so I would keep my clients almost entertained. I'm like, oh yeah, they want to come back. There's a new workout. They're learning something new. What I've learned God, I learned this probably in year 5. It took me 5 years to learn this. And after having clients who've been with me for 20 plus years, is that people who work with me anyway are not coming to the gym to be entertained. They're coming for results. And this is one thing that I didn't really think about because I just thought, oh yeah, they want to build muscle, they want to lose fat. Not everyone who goes to the gym primary focus is to build muscle and lose fat. Yes, people want to change their physiques. People want to look better. Of course, if you were to ask anyone, do they want to look better? Of course, they're going to say, yes, I want to look good. But that might not necessarily be their primary goal. And you have to tap into what your client's primary goal is because I work with a lot of people whose goal is, hey, you know what? High blood pressure runs in my family. High cholesterol runs in my family. Arthritis runs in my family. I don't want to be a victim to these health conditions. Help me. And I can say to them, I can't promise you that you're not going to get them, especially if you're genetically predisposed, but we're going to do the best we possibly can to make sure that you don't become type 2 diabetic or that you don't have high cholesterol levels and have to go on some type of medication, right? So to me, all this stuff is very important that as a trainer, I understand that not everyone wants to be a bodybuilder. Not everyone wants to have this incredible physique. And not everyone needs to be entertained in the gym. But what I truly believe, as not just a trainer, but as a business owner, everyone who comes to work with my company will get my full focus, my undivided attention when they work with me. And what I mean by that is I don't take out my phone during a session. I'm not texting someone or messaging a client during my session. Someone's paying for my time. They're getting my time. All right. And listen, my time isn't cheap. And I understand that for a lot of people, time is money for a lot of people. And you know what? It's also my client's time too. So even if you take the monetary value out of the session, whatever 120, $150, whatever it is, that's their time. They're spending their time with me. So because of that, I'm going to make sure that I'm giving them the best workout I possibly can. But at the same time, I'm not doing it in hopes or in fear that they're going to leave me and I need to keep them as a client because I already know that if I'm doing the best of my ability to make sure that I'm customizing the program for this person, I'm doing everything I can. Are the workouts entertaining and fun? No. No, sometimes we do the same shit week in, week out, but it works. And the person needs me there for the accountability. They need me there for the spotting techniques. All right. And yeah, I will add in new exercises, but not for like clickbait value or for shock value or for entertainment value. It's because you know what? Now we need to advance to this movement or we need to take out this movement for a bit. And that's why having a good coach in your corner can have that trained eye and go, okay, you know what? I'm looking at your physique, I'm assessing your physique, or I'm looking at your health markers. I think it would be better if we add more cardiovascular into your workouts. So let's do some more circuit training, whatever it is. A good coach will be able to program accordingly for your specific goals, your health history, and basically your lifestyle too, because that's important. Because not everyone's going to be in the gym 5 or 6 days a week. I've got some clients that train twice a week, and I tell them, that's fine. That's great. Are you going to get amazing results? No, but you're going to get pretty decent results if you're exercising twice a week, 2 hours a week. Why not? Yeah, sure. Your health markers are going to look pretty good. And with those people, I try my best to make sure that if they're not working with me with their nutrition, at least I can give them some pointers so that they can make the right decisions with their nutrition. Okay, and that helps too. So I think as like if you're asking me the mistakes I made a lot of mistakes, but I think the main mistake was in fear of trying to train people to impress people in fear that I'd lose them as a client. And now I don't do that. So when someone comes to work with me, A, I don't feel like I have to prove myself. And that might sound cocky and arrogant. It's just, I don't feel, I have a full roster. I don't feel like, oh, I have to prove myself to you. I don't have to prove myself to anyone, but I am going to give you, in my opinion, the best workout that you're going to get because I'm going to program this specifically for the information that you've provided me with. And in my opinion, not only does that make a good coach, good trainer, that just makes a good business owner, period. Anyway, that's it for this week's No Filter Q&A. This episode will be going out on June the 29th. As a reminder, if you have any questions related to your nutritional plan, workout program, supplements you're currently taking, not taking, or considering taking, please feel free to email me those questions at nick@foreverfitperformance.com, or you can DM me your questions on my Instagram at @fitcosgrove_. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for supporting my YouTube channel, my online coaching business, as well as my in-house personal training business here in Vancouver, British Columbia. I truly do appreciate all the support and all the feedback. And please like and subscribe to the channel. If you like the information I'm providing you with, it does give me some motivation to continue to put out the No Filter Q&As, the coaching reality episodes that go out every Wednesday, the YouTube shorts that go out on a daily basis. So I'm just trying to provide as much information out there, maybe get a few clients on the way. That's great too. But if not, if I can just help you in any way, I'm glad you're following my content. And I do appreciate the support. Thank you all again. And I will see you all on Wednesday for the coaching reality episode. Bye for now.